or I think it is. It doesn't matter. Again,
Yeah.
also not even a real person.
He's not even a real person.
1-2. Swinging a drive toward right center. Back goes Robert. Back near the stands. That ball is gone. A game-winning home run for Chris Burrell. Can you believe it? Listen to this crowd.
Welcome back to the Brotherly Cubs podcast. It has been a minute. I'm your little brother, Zach, and that's my big brother, John. We are your brothers who love everything Cubs baseball, or do we? You enjoy Chicago, Illinois, Midwestern professional baseball of the Major League Baseball. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and join us every week as we dive into the and your Chicago Cubs.
We like to start off each podcast with a playful question for all 106 of our subscribers. Before we get to that playful question, we would like to shout out all of you. Thank you for listening to us. We know it's been a minute, like you said. That reminded me of that Severance trailer when I forget who his name is, but yeah, he comes in and he asks Markets, or he tells Mark it's been a minute. And then, anyways.
Oh, that's coming out this week, yeah.
Coming out. But yeah, Zach, I wanted to ask you, what were the Cubs grateful for or thankful for this last year? That's our main question today.
I think the Cubs are grateful for a few things. For one, family. No, Tom Ricketts, I'm sure, is grateful for guys like Michael Busch. Turned out to be a good trade piece. Also, Shota Imanaga turned out to be one of the more valuable, good price, solid value starting pitchers in the major leagues last season. Almost a candidate for Rookie of the Year. And a PCA who is a demon on the bases, can catch anything. He gets some slug that has yet to be fully unlocked. But I think those are a few players that the front office is very thankful for. Do you have any on your side?
Oh, the Ricketts, I would say that they're grateful for the patience of Cubs fans, right? I mean, we've got to be,
We're
right up there, like, yeah.
We love pain.
I'm really sad right now, but I'm kind of into the pain, man. Keep it going. I think I can keep going here. No, I just, I think they're grateful, like you said, for PCA and his progress, and that's really encouraging to see him take some steps forward, not swinging at curveballs that are at his feet. I'm trying to take more pitches, and so I think they're grateful for a lot of things. Maybe I was thinking about this as well. The trade value of some of their position players, although one of them, obviously, Nico Harner's
hurt.
Out. He's hurt right now, so. But anyways, yeah, I think there's a lot to be grateful for, and it's hard always to see, silver linings all the time, especially given the circumstances of the franchise. So,
agreed.
We have some roster updates here. So, Colten Brewer, Yency Almonte, Christian Bethancourt, and Enoli Paredes are now free agents.
He's from New York.
The heck are you doing here, man? Rob Zastryzny. I feel like I'm Zion Williamson saying that word. What was it?
Lackadaisical.
Lackadaisical.
I've watched that every day for 3 straight days now. It makes me laugh every time.
There's another one. There's like Kevin Garnett says, he says something like that. But yeah. Anyways, he's a hoot. So anyways, all of these guys will compete for left-handed options out of the bullpen. Well, not really left-handed options. I guess Rob is a left-handed option.
Yes.
Bethancourt is not a left-handed option.
No, he is gone.
He is gone. I'm gonna miss him, honestly. As much as I mean, he had like 1 or 2 games that he just absolutely,
he did
went off, and so
the season was definitely over at that time, right? Are you thankful for Christian Bethancourt?
Yeah, I gotta be.
Yeah,
Colten Brewer, maybe not so much. You may, exit stage left. He Yeah, Colten Brewer. It's kind of
Yeah.
like whatever. Yency Almonte. That's.
That's a
I
tough
think
one.
I think they'll re-sign him. I think you have to, right? I mean, or you have to at least make an offer.
Yeah, give him an expensive when they have something called a split deal where if you make them, I think they can obviously they negotiate minor league free agents every year. That's something we never hear about. It's pretty low key. I don't think they make very much, but I do think that there's a way to set up a split deal, and the Cubs have done that. Where I think if guys, let's say he's either rehabbing or he's in the minor leagues for X amount of the season, he can get X amount of dollars, maybe more than market value. And then when he makes the major league roster, maybe they can prorate his old salary or give him like $1 million or something a little bit over the major league average. I do think a minor league deal makes sense for both those sides
Right. I can see
because,
that happening.
yeah, I think it sounds like with the surgery he had, he might be back close to like July or August. And so, yeah, he's not going to pitch more than a couple innings out of the bullpen, even if he does come back. So they'd be doing him a solid and giving him a place to rehab, really. And the nose arsenal. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's familiarity obviously there in Chicago, so I not to rule him out yet, but I mean, yeah, we'll see. The Cubs have the non-tender deadline on November 22nd with the following players to make a decision on. So obviously, Adbert Alzolay, is it Jimmy Herget,
I think so.
Nick Madrigal, Julian Merriweather, Isaac Paredes, Nate Pearson, Justin Steele, Mike Tauchman, Keegan Thompson. There's a lot. Trey Wingenter. Is it
Either way,
Kim
he's not even
Basinger? Basinger?
the cop said he's not even a real guy.
There's also, the hometown favorite, Patrick Wisdom.
Is he a hometown favorite?
No, I don't think so.
Mike Tauchman's a hometown favorite.
Yeah, the Palatine Pounder.
There you go.
Patrick. No, I don't know where he's from. I forget.
I'd have to look that up. I'm guessing he's from America.
I will raise you 10 chips and say Egypt. No.
Oh, it says he's from California. I think a lot of dudes are.
I think I remember that. Yeah,
California,
is it San Francisco or?
It said Murrieta, which I honestly don't know where that is. Is that where I think it is? It doesn't matter. Again, also not even a real person.
He's not even a real person.
It's
he's hardly
Orange County.
Recognizable. Yeah, if he was on the side of the street, I probably would walk right past him and not even.
Here's the thing: of those guys, is there anyone that you'd say some of those guys? I mean, let's Isaac Paredes and Justin Steele. Come on, these are more arbitration eligible. They'll get raises type guys. But anyone on there that screams DFA or non-tender for you?
I mean, besides Madrigal,
right? He's a
Madrigal's got to be number one. He's got to be.
If they tender him a contract, I am going to break things in my in my office. I will be so upset. He has no value, especially with all these prospects. You'd be doing a massive disservice to the seasons that Triantos and Shaw just had.
You break things, I will set things on fire. There you go.
Whoa. Well, how about borderline guys, right? Maybe Wingenter is non-tendered, but what do you think about guys like Wisdom or Tauchman?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Tauchman's kind of tough, right? I mean, you hate to say it, but I mean, maybe he would be next. I mean, Jimmy Herget, I don't know. Know who that is, I guess. But I mean, Mike Tauchman is, I think he's got a special place in a lot of people's hearts. And I just think there's too many outfielders, right? Like then, you keep him, then you have to trade some of your minor league depth outfielders, right? I mean, you can't.
Yeah, and that might happen regardless too. Yeah. But yeah, that would definitely. There's already 4 outfielders on the roster, so he'd be like fifth. I mean, I guess let's say as a DH,
and that's not even right.
Outfielder number 4. It depends on if he has options, right? I mean, if he has another minor league option, that could give them a possibility of stashing him in Iowa. But yeah, you're right. It would be the cluster in outfield is really tight right now. I mean,
yeah,
might be a casualty.
They almost have to trade outfield depth for maybe starting pitching, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Keegan Thompson's kind of
Another borderline guy.
He's another borderline guy. I'm kind of on the fence about him. I feel like he's had his chances, right? Like I know he's had injuries too.
Yeah.
Julian Merriweather is kind of a shoe-in. I think if you get him healthy, he could be a really impact bullpen piece. Justin Steele, obviously. I mean, a lot of these guys will make arbitration numbers, and they'll be back. But Alzolay that's another tricky one, right? Like if you get Alzolay and Merriweather healthy, you maybe need
Alzolay's going to miss like the whole season, by the way. So he's not even going to be back to pitch at all. If anything, maybe September.
Was he really?
Yeah, he had Tommy John like in September.
Oh, okay.
So it's typically a full year. Merriweather, I don't think he did have injuries, but I don't think he's going into the offseason with anything. I think he is healthy at this point in time, unlike, let's say, Nico Horner, who had surgery on his arm or wrist or something, tendon. In my opinion, like just straight opinion, I think Merriweather is worth keeping at whatever the minimum is. If he was due for like a $3 or $4 million deal, that would be a little steep because you could just replace him with a little bit better, safer bet. But I do think Merriweather at the major league minimum at 780 or 770, I think that's a good deal. I mean, this is a guy who we were going crazy for when he was injured, saying we'd like to get this guy a closer shot when he comes back. He does have a good fastball. He didn't have it last year with the injuries.
Right.
I think a normal off season and come into the season healthy. That to me, he would be worth a seventh inning guy. I don't say taking a flyer, but he had a good year in 2023. So if he can get even 80% of that back, that's a low three something ERA strikeout pitcher towards the back of the bullpen. So, and as many arms as you can get. I'd like him over Keegan Thompson if they had to make a coin flip type decision. Heads Julian Merriweather, tails Keegan Thompson. I'd like it to be heads. I'd like Merriweather over Thompson. I don't know if their roster is that tight, but I'm sure we'll get into like sort of the pitching ramifications of keeping some of those guys.
Yeah. As of November 9th, so a couple of days ago, the Cubs did activate him, so he is now capable of playing in a game. If we have games coming up, I don't know. We don't really. It said the Cubs activated Merriweather from the 60-day injured list.
Well, they had to activate all of it. So did Alzolay. They activated every 60-day injured list, and hence they were over 4 spots. They had to DFA those aforementioned Brewer, Almonte, Bethancourt, Paredes. But obviously they have to add guys like Casey. We don't have this in the show notes, but Casey, and then the newly acquired infielder Ben Cowles, who is healthy, played in the AFL here in the offseason. Arizona Fall League, for those who don't know, not Arena Football League. He played in the Arena Football League, so he's clearly healthy. Ben Cowles had some good numbers for the Yankees, a solid return. Or did he play for the Yankees? Did we trade 2 guys? Okay.
No, wasn't he injured?
He was injured, but he
played
did
a little bit. I think he played a little bit for
Double-A, obviously. He could start in Double-A, but a Triple-A depth behind, let's say, Sean Triantos will be added to the 40-man roster, and thus, I believe the Cubs may drop 2 more guys actually around that non-tender deadline. Those will sort of coincide. They may make a decision a couple days before the non-tender deadline in terms of DFAs. In order to act, there will be 2 guys over, adding those 2, so you'd have to drop 2 more. So at a minimum, I'm guessing guys like Herget and Wingenter be dropped right away. And I'm guessing guys like Alzolay, Madrigal, and Wisdom are sort of fence / likely to be moved off. And then a guy like Tauchman is so close to the edge there. You do like him. There's injuries. I mean, he's a 700-something OPS player. Pretty good defense. He's won a couple games with defense. He's clutch.
Right.
Like you said, hometown guy. So that's a guy I'd really love to keep. If there were injuries coming into, maybe they can tender him and hold him on the 40-man and dangle him in a trade. He would be a really good trade chip. He'd be cheap. He's got good experience and he rehabbed his value. He's a good 4th outfielder, I think, for a lot of teams.
Yeah, it takes a lot of pitches. I mean, he draws walks. I mean, a lot of people were mentioning this. I think Sam Olber on Locked On was mentioning, we were surprised. A lot of people were surprised that he wasn't traded. Honestly, last trade deadline because there's a lot of contenders that could have used him
for sure.
On a team like the Yankees.
For sure, I was going to mention them. He has experience with the Yankees too.
Oh yeah, so I mean, it would have made sense, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Moving on here. So the winter meetings are December 8th through the 12th in Dallas, Texas. Zach, you are planning to go to that. You said
break in
with your press pass,
Mission Impossible style, through a window.
No one will see it coming. Yeah.
We're announcing it on air, so we'll hear it.
Look out and keep an eye out for someone dangling by a wire. But anyways, so what do you think might come out of these meetings here? There's already been rumblings about Max Fried going to the Cubs. There's some connection there with obviously Dansby Swanson, who was a Brave at one point. And I believe they won a World Series together.
They did. Yes.
You have him. Let's first start talking about him. What do you think? Do you think that makes sense? Does that fit make sense to you? Max Fried to the Cubs?
I think it makes sense in terms of getting a top of the line pitcher. To me, this feels a lot like the 2023 offseason. Yes, 23 offseason, where the Cubs went out and got Dansby Swanson. It's a similar process where there's a lot of good valued free agents at a position of need. And so I think pitching makes sense because there's just a lot of pitchers out there. We've talked about this on previous podcasts, but even last year, we talked about this offseason, right? This is the offseason to be excited about, even though the Ricketts and sort of the ownership group in the front office have sort of let us down over the last couple of years. They do have, even with Bellinger opting in, that was another point. We've been gone for a while. We didn't mention he opted in, and that's a certainty in the outfield, probably playing right field. So that kind of influences the Cubs to maybe, instead of getting like a couple hitters, replace Belly plus add a bat or catcher. It's going to shift them towards adding maybe only one or two bats, and then also go and get a starting pitcher. Fried, Flaherty, Buehler, Eovaldi, the list goes on.
Right.
I think Fried makes sense because he's not going to command more than $30 million. He's not going to command like a Burns type deal, and he may not also command like a 10-year deal. I think he's 30 years old, so he might get like 6 years or something. So I think that would make sense for them in that ballpark. They're comfortable with giving him a similar, maybe a little bit more money than Dansby Swanson.
I agree. I've seen a lot of reports out there that he's, not going to cost as much as people might think. The Orioles are linked to him in terms of letting go of Burns and just letting him walk, and then they were going to sign Max Fried. Fried, however you. So, I like him. Obviously, we talked about this I think last Christmas when we launched our podcast. Shout out to Brotherly Cubs, but
shout out to us.
Shout out to us.
If you haven't heard of us,
check us out.
I'll say it again.
Yeah. So the injuries are there. I think he had one or two injuries this year that kept him out, and so he's not going to give you 200 innings.
Well,
but
he pitched 100. I want to correct that. The injuries were last year, 2023. This previous year, 174 innings, which he might have had like a blip in the radar type injury, like missed 2 starts or something. But it looks like he made actually 29 starts and 174 innings. And the reason why I think he's a fit was because in 2019, 21, 22, and 24, he made at least 28 starts. And if you go back to 2020, he made 11 starts in a 60-game season. So he effectively pitched 3 straight seasons in a row, almost pitching the whole season, 4 straight. And 2023 was really the only season in which he's been dominant that he got injured and missed. He still pitched 77 innings. There's guys like Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer that have missed a lot of time that are much more injured. But I do think that given his relative health, even when he has been hurt, he's still been a workhorse. I don't have the numbers in front of me of particularly how far he goes or quality starts, but and he's not going to strike out like 12 guys per 9, but still 8 to 9, and the fastball is good.
Yeah.
I listened to CHGO Cubs Brendan Miller. I'm guessing he's like a data scientist or someone who knows extremely complicated computer science type stuff. But basically, he was showing that Fried has as good of a cut right type fastball as Justin Steele, and he has a curveball that is sort of on the outlier as well in terms of the break, horizontal and vertical break. So he's got good strikeout pitches, and he can get his ground ball rate is like in the 50 to 60%. So it's higher than league average, and that's what you need. You're gonna have a good defensive infield, assuming Horner's healthy. You'd like a guy that can maybe strike out more hitters, and so there's definitely other opportunities out there to go and get a strikeout pitcher. But I do think he's a top of the rotation arm, and he's proven that in the last few years.
So Max Fried, just to re-correct you, did have an injury. It was left arm neuritis.
Okay, how many starts did he miss?
It was a 15-day disabled list, so it wasn't that long. But he was also hit by a comebacker by Fernando Tatis in Game 2 of the NL Wild Card Series. And he was hit on his left hip. So that was over a month ago.
He pitched 174 innings though, so he missed 2 weeks, or he missed 2 weeks.
It looks like 2 weeks. I mean, I'm assuming he was activated, like right after that. So he had said an MRI revealed nerve irritation, but no structural damage in his pitching arm. So, I mean, he's very solid. My only other hangup is just how many rotational lefties we have. Obviously Steele. We have Imanaga. You got possibly Jordan Wicks, and so, I mean, adding a fourth lefty.
If you want to win a World Series, Jordan Wicks is not like a dependable. He's not in your 5-day. If you think about it, you can jumble the arms if you want the think postseason, right? Where there's not 5 starters. At times there's 3, and at times there's 4. I don't think Jordan Wicks is your 4th best starting pitcher when everyone's healthy. I think he might be 5th or 6th. He is a good pitcher, and I think he could pitch in the bullpen, especially because they don't have any lefties. But
so legit, you would need 4 pitchers, right? So I mean, 3 of those would be lefties.
3 lefties, yeah. So I would say you have
1 righty. So I mean, you can mix in like a righty in the top 2. Like if you go lefty, righty, lefty, lefty, or something like that. I mean, I don't know. I guess I want to try and be as balanced as you can. Obviously, hitters, obviously as well. You want to go lefty, righties.
So what if Steele or Imanaga get injured in like September and they have to miss a couple weeks?
Oh yeah, I mean that's a great question, but we're now you're making assumptions.
Okay.
I mean, I'm assuming we're going to have this disagreement over Max Fried.
I mean, he's better than like Michael Lorenzen. So like
Well, let's look at the other options here. So obviously Roki Sasaki is obviously an option as well. He's right-handed. But a lot of news outlets are not projecting that he's going to go to the Cubs or anywhere near Chicago. They have him going. Not that I've seen Dodgers. You mentioned off air the Padres because of his affinity for Yu Darvish. And then I don't know the other team. Maybe the Yankees.
The last report I heard was Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, Cubs. So it was 4. Those are the top 4.
So you did hear Cubs. It was in there.
Yeah, they also heard Padres, Mariners, Red Sox, and Rangers as backups. So I think the Cubs are in the top 8, which doesn't mean anything, but it's worth noting that the Cubs are out on guys like Soto and Burns because they don't want to spend what would be the number. So for Soto, it's probably like $500 or $600 million. Obviously, they can't afford that. For Burns, the number is probably over $300 million, and they're already out on that. And Sasaki's not going to command any money until years from now. So their books might be clean when they have to give him a $30 million salary, right? So and he'll be young. He'll still be young even when he's a free agent. So Sasaki, the latest. So there's 2 things here, right? one thing is American media doesn't have a pulse on his agent as much.
Right.
We're just hearing rumors, so everything right now is speculation.
Yeah.
If there is anything, if there is any truth in the rumor that he wants to go to small market team, Dodgers, Yankees, and Mets are out. Padres, Cubs, Mariners, and Rangers would all have a better chance. So those bottom half of the probability might actually be more likely. I mean,
Yeah.
the Cubs aren't a small market team, so it might be like Padres or Mariners.
Yeah.
Small market on the West Coast, to me, that. And now if he's out on the Padres, if he says no to them and it's Cubs, Mariners, Rangers or something like that, I think Cubs are in first place. But for me, it's at least exciting to hear that multiple reporters are predicting Max Fried a star pitcher. That's at least good to hear because it feels very similar to the Dansby Swanson offseason a couple years ago when, when the Cubs acquired him, everyone was like, well, they're not quite out on Turner or Bogarts. Well, or they could get, Bogarts and Correa, right? They were sort of in the chase, but everyone's at the end of the day still predicted Dansby Swanson to the Cubs because they thought he's going to command the least amount of money.
Right.
He's still an all-star caliber shortstop or up there power hitter. So I think the Cubs are not to be, but you're right. There's not like a 50-50 shot or something. I think they're in the mix still, and it might take until that, December 15th deadline to find out, obviously, what's going to happen. It shouldn't be one of those things that drifts into January because I think then the free agency bonus pool will collapse for that off season.
Right.
And so then you'd have to go back to Japan and thus restart this whole thing over again the next off season.
A lot of awkwardness.
That would be, that would be.
So can I pitch for you guys? Is that cool? Like, I know I want to leave. I want to.
Yeah.
But hey, you need a pitcher. I need a team.
So who, if they don't get, let's say, Fried or Roki Sasaki, is there anyone who you're predicting the Cubs might get on a different kind of deal?
Yeah, I mean, so you do have Cade Horton coming up eventually. He's got to be part of their future, I would think, if he stays healthy. So, I could definitely see them taking someone like a Nathan Eovaldi on a cheap deal. Maybe 1 or 2 year deal for, I don't know, like 30, 40 or 50, 40. 50 million. World Series experience, still a great pitcher. Pretty healthy for the most part. I don't know. Anything.
Really good for the Rangers in their World Series run, and that I think that adds a lot of value to his contract. Yeah,
incredible. Yeah,
he grunts like a tennis player when he throws.
Sure. Yeah,
he does. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I want you to agree.
It helps him throw fast. He grunts.
Corbin Burns, you kind of burst my bubble on that, and I guess other news outlets have burst my bubble. It's not just you.
I was like, you can't really. If you want to, you can predict him. He's just like a 2% chance. So
my only thing that I see him if he does sign with the Cubs would be like I said, if the market just collapses for not the market, but like his what he's asking for. Like if he's asking for an insane deal, which is, if you look at his numbers, he has his K per 9 are going down year after year. I think it's like a little over 1 per year, 1K per inning, per 9 per year, which is, a little alarming. It's not like it's, a drastic drop off, but he's got an insane sweeper. I was just watching highlights of him, and he's got great stuff. And so, if we were able to pull that, that'd be huge. We wouldn't have to trade. I think if we strike out, we're going to have to trade as far as prospects for a someone like a George Kirby or Brian Wu or someone that could be had for a decent price. But we'll see. That's wishful thinking, honestly, if we're able to get George Kirby. But Jack Flaherty is another one. I think he was great in the World Series. He's a former Cardinal, but I think he's a possible, maybe 1 or 2 year deal if he's not able to secure something long term. He's pretty young though. I mean, I would think he would look for a bigger, like a longer deal. Some people think that he would be able to be had on a cheap, like 1 year, high AAV 1 year deal. So
Yeah, I like him too. He's a strikeout type pitcher, and he's kind of rehabbed his value a little bit. He has had some really bad seasons.
right,
Something like, you know, I'm trying to pull up his numbers here, but
sure,
in the fours of ERAs at times, and so that sort of scares me if he goes
yeah,
back to 4.9. Well, small sample in 2020, but
yeah,
4.25.
right,
2023 4.99, so 2 seasons in the 4.9 range. That's like Kyle Hendricks old age bad, and that was his 24 and 20 age 27 seasons, and then even uh, you know age 26 season he had a 4.25 ERA. So he rehabbed his value quite a bit last year. He has it's very Jekyll and Hyde. When you look at his numbers, it's like, okay, he's starting out. Wow, he's really good. 2 consecutive seasons, bad. Really good. Terrible. Out of the league, bad. Oh my gosh, he's incredible.
yeah,
And he's had injuries too, right? That's
yeah,
a trickier thing for him, but I think I agree with you. I do think he could be worth a reclamation type deal if they can
right.
swing that.
He's because he kind of latched onto the Dodgers and went so far and was effective in the playoffs. I mean, that really does wonders for his free agency. So, we'll see if the Dodgers are not able to, retain him. I think he'd be a good fit for a 1 or 2 year deal, kind of with Nathan Eovaldi again, until really, you have Cade Horton coming into his own
Hmm.
and really, making a name for himself in the rotation. So, kind of moving ahead a little bit. I was going to talk about the bullpen. So some bullpen pieces that, I would hope that the Cubs would look at least. Maybe just throw an offer out or two to the following pitchers. So Carlos Estevez, what do you think? The Mighty Ducks man?
Yeah,
I
I think
think I think he I think he could be had. Obviously, Tanner Scott is obviously another one a lot of people are going to be talking about. And I'll get into another name, but those two, I think Carlos Estevez might be a little more affordable than Tanner Scott. I think Tanner Scott's just going to command a huge amount of money,
yeah.
maybe within the realm of, Josh Hader type money, which might obviously put the Cubs out of consideration. It would be great to have him alongside, Luke Little as some power lefties. Otherwise, because I don't really know how many lefties we really have in the bullpen besides maybe Wicks if you move him to the bullpen.
Right.
Um,
That's what I was kind of advocating for before. Is it if you mentioned Cade Horton, we hadn't talked about him. Ben Brown, he can swing either into the pen or the rotation. If you can load up your rotation and move a guy like Assad, who's good with men on base, and a guy like
yeah,
Wicks, who at times struggled to go deeper, get him into some kind of more limited outings, that he could thrive. And it could have a Drew Smiley type role as the lefty that can pitch in different spots. They really need him to be versatile next year
yeah,
because they may not have room for him to pitch like 140 innings, or whatever, in the starting spot. So if they can
yeah,
load up their starters and they can actually move him to the bullpen, there's a
right,
lefty right there. So that would help. But yeah, I agree
yeah.
with what you're saying. Tanner Scott would be great.
I think as long as they're adding pitching, which obviously they have to, you have Hendricks, moving on. So I mean, if you don't get someone like Max Fried, yeah, you have to get Nathan Eovaldi or Flaherty, Jack Flaherty. I mean, you have to make some kind of move. At least I don't know about for two, but for sure one, so that you can at least like you said, keep Assad and maybe Ben Brown in the bullpen. I mean, that
Yeah.
really strengthens your bullpen. You might not have to go out and get an impact arm like a Tanner Scott. Or Jeff Hoffman. Hoffman he played for the Phillies. He was alongside Jose Alvarado. He had, I think, was it 10 saves or something like that
Hmm.
in limited, closer appearances. I think he had like a 2.07 or something like that ERA. So really, really solid pitcher. Not many people know about him. So I just found out about his numbers today. So
I will echo sort of your thoughts on those Hoffman and Estevez as decent deals. These are guys that aren't going to command multi-year 10, 15 million a year deals. Estevez has at times had some very bad numbers in his career in terms of ERA. So that could help. That could help the Cubs at least get in the door, right, with negotiations. The last couple years, 3.4, 3.9, and then 2.45 ERA. So this last year was a good platform year for him. Obviously, fastball 97.
Yeah.
The K per 9 numbers are good. So I agree, and I think Hoffman has had better numbers. I would go and say if the Cubs cannot get Tanner Scott, which you and I agree they probably can't afford him, on a multi-year deal. If they don't go and get him as a closer, then they should go and get, for me, it should be AJ Minter. I think he's the number one lefty option available. He's a veteran, career 3.28 ERA. I was looking at his walk per 9 numbers on accident. I was like, oh, these are pretty good ERA numbers. His ERA numbers are pretty good as well. They actually are similar to his walk numbers, 2.06 and then 3.76 and then 2.62 ERA. So a couple high numbers here and there, but a good career ERA. Career fastball is at 96, and he's a lefty, and K per 9 is at 10.9, almost 11. So it went down this year, but I mean, even the years before, 12 and 11 Ks per 9. He's really good.
Would you be looking at just like a relief option or a closing, like a closer? Do you feel like we need to?
Well, AJ Minter had.
He's a relief, just not closer.
He's only had 36 career saves in parts of 7 seasons, so he's only had a couple of years in which he's gotten saves regularly for the Braves, a career Atlanta Brave. So I think he's going to be like an 8th inning type guy. And if injuries, at this point, I think Porter Hodge and Jorge Lopez are your 2 closers. I think these guys are going to compete for closer.
Yeah.
Tanner Scott would be acquiring a closer, and then guys like Estevez or Hoffman could compete for a closer role. I think AJ Minter could compete if he really wants to sign a 1-year deal for cheap and says, hey, give me closer save opportunities. I want to go back out of the market, rehab my value with 10 to 20 saves and get a bigger deal. That's certainly an opportunity for him if that's what he wants. He's 31. The book isn't closed on him going out and getting a 2 or 3 year deal next offseason. So that's an opportunity. I just think for the Cubs, they need another lefty option, period. And he strikes guys out. We'll see. I mean, either way, if you look at what Hector Neris did, he was really good in the 7th and 8th inning role, thrust into the 9th inning with injuries, and then he sucked. So I don't want to force AJ Minter into that role and have his stuff fall off the table, right? Maybe 8th inning, maybe fireman type role where there's runners on base and 2 pocket of lefties up, kind of like how Mark Leiter used to be used. You could certainly do that. And then at times you could have him close, maybe a situational closer, a strong left-handed team like the Dodgers, Freeman and Ohtani are up. Okay, Minter, this is your inning, right? And then because the other option is Luke Little, right? Luke Little is a very, very good pitcher. He's young. Yeah. He's been wild at times. He can strike guys out, but he was injured. Right. So I need Luke Little to just get healthy.
Right.
And then I'd like Minter to be my number 1 lefty and maybe Little my number 2, and then maybe Wicks kind of fill in. You need 2 or 3 lefties, right? The Cubs only had Smiley and Little last offseason.
Yeah.
They're going to have Zastryzny fight in for that role. And, Smiley's gone. And also Leiter and Neris, right-handers who can get lefties out with splitters. Yeah. Those guys are both gone as well. So they're going to need to acquire. They acquired Zastryzny. If he pitches great, or if he pitches well, great. I think at least get 1 surefire lefty, maybe 2 if possible. There's a few other names here. There's not good names for left. There's a bad offseason for lefties, but Will Smith, Matt Moore, Brooks Raley, Andrew Chafin, and Chafin, former Cub. Will Smith, There was a person named Will Smith in the last like 6 World Series teams, kind of an incredible stat,
Right.
or 5 or whatever the number, 5 or 6.
Yeah.
A pretty crazy stat. Will Smith, the pitcher, was on I think 3 of those teams. So
It's important to note that he has not slapped anybody though.
Right. He's white.
And he's white.
There's
so.
2 white Will Smiths. That's a plot twist. So there's some lefties out there. I would say go and get like a Rayleigh or Chafin and then pair them with Minter. Don't rely on Little. And the names you mentioned are great. Ryan Stanek is still available. Go and get him.
Yeah.
He was cheap. I mean,
yeah.
if you suck, flip him at the deadline. I mean, he's $5 million last year. Clay Holmes, we haven't talked about.
Yeah, he had some issues closing games late.
He did, but he doesn't need to be a closer. He could be an 8th inning guy and close if you absolutely needed to.
Yeah.
Blake Trinan, he's been injured a lot, but he's filthy.
Oh, he's a beast. Yeah, I mean, you obviously saw that in the World Series.
The sinker and the way the slider moves
Sweeper,
away.
Yeah.
The way the sweeper moves like a frisbee, the sinker, 96, 97. Jose Leclerc, former Ranger.
Yeah.
Really good stuff. And then Yimi Garcia. So this is actually good offseason to grab. We mentioned like
pieces,
like 10 or 11 dudes out there. They're not going to command more than
fuck it, sign them all.
The Cubs now have 24 options in spring training.
Well, to your point, Zach, I mean, just looking at the numbers for Minter. So, I mean, opponent's batting average 198, on base 271, slug 364. So, I mean, solid numbers. Doubles throughout the whole year. Two doubles. That was his lowest total since 2017. 6 home runs. I don't know how that really. I mean, total bases, just overall total bases 44. That's his lowest number in the last 5 years, or 4 years.
Beast mode, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, great numbers on Minter. Good option there, like you mentioned, to sign. Yeah, there's a lot of options that they could definitely go in. It just depends on how much do you want to spend. I don't think they can. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Stevenson of last year. Angels getting him for 3 years on a $33 million deal. That's terrible. I feel like you can't let someone go like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you can't have somebody like an AJ Minter seep through the cracks on a 2-year, $20 million deal.
Right. You gotta Well, I want to mention they did get Neris for 2 for 18, so they did a deal just like that. So maybe that is a precursor to say they could do 2 for 20 for Minter, and he's a lefty. I mean, it's like a strong position of need. And you and I thought Neris was a great signing. I mean, he just pitched terribly.
Yeah,
I don't know what happened. He pitched well at the Astros after.
Yeah. A lot of it really does come down to, I think, just the environment and
right.
How familiar he was with Houston, and obviously going to a new team. And sometimes it doesn't work with players, and sometimes it does. I think it just depends on the person. So
just get all of the Atlanta Braves. I want Swanson, Fried, Minter,
the entire World Series team from a few years ago.
Reunite them.
Onto the Cubs. Yeah,
the Cubs did reunite former base running coach from the Brewers with Counsell.
Okay.
That doesn't really mean anything, but I would be interested to see if they try and do reunite any other former Brewers. I don't know. Willie Adames is a free agent, but we can talk about hitting in our next podcast as we get closer to the winter meetings and the other deadlines coming up. But I do think that Minter and Fried, like getting both those guys, that would be kind of interesting. Getting 2 Braves together, get some buddies that are together on the team. That would be kind of cool. I don't know.
I mean, maybe it'll, jumpstart Dansby and.
Maybe he's lonely or
he's just lonely. His wife is not enough. I need Max Fried.
I need friends.
I don't need a woman
Georgia.
who's never in the clubhouse. I need
dudes to hang out with.
Dudes, man. I need some ATL dudes. Come on. Anyways, yeah, there's a lot of options. Hopefully they, make some impact signings. If not bullpen, like we said, starting pitching to push some of those current bullpen pieces, the incumbent bullpen pieces, into the incumbent starters, like I guess you'd say Assad and Brown, into a bullpen, like an official, a permanent, bullpen piece or bullpen role. So, any other closing thoughts, Zach, before we wrap it up here?
I'm done. I think we
You're done.
hit
You're
the nail on
cooked.
the
You're
head.
fried. Or are you freed?
Who knows?
You're
it looks
freed.
Like fried.
You're freed from your responsibility.
From I am maximum freed.
We are all max fried here. So that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us here on the Brotherly Cubs podcast. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, or join the conversation with us on Twitter at Brotherly Cubs or Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I'm your big brother, John, and that's my little brother, Zach. And we will see you next week. Until next time, we will be talking about hitters, right, Zach?
Yep.
Our next podcast. So free agent hitters. Hopefully we sign, a slugger or two, maybe a catcher, but we'll see. Thanks for tuning into the pod, and we will catch you later.
See ya.
Peace.
Listen to this crowd.